I think just understanding that we have an LGBT prime minister and nobody notices, that this is a trend line we're on, that we still have more work to do, but if it were not for global news, we would not have learned that the Conservative leader has been purposefully using his videos to appeal to far-right misogynistic online movements. These are anti-women movements, and they have had devastating real-life consequences. Mr. Speaker, I call on the Conservative leader to stand in this House, take responsibility, and apologize.
I condemned this organization, and I corrected the problem as soon as it became known to me, Mr. Speaker. But I condemn all forms of misogyny, including when the Prime Minister fired the very first female Indigenous Attorney General.
Conservative leader in reaching out to extremist online groups, into pulling in anti-women, misogynistic groups for his own political gain, is one that he will have to answer for. I think women across this country want to know why he allowed this to happen and want to see him take responsibility for it.
Minority young women in his own caucus who had to leave politics, and I condemn him for when he dressed up in racist costumes so many times he forgot them all. We condemn it always, Mr. Speaker. I took responsibility and corrected it as soon as it became known to me, but the Prime Minister does not take responsibility for the extremism that he has funded. He funded a vicious anti-Semite to spread hatred online with taxpayers' dollars. He repeatedly, in fact so many times he can't even keep track, dressed up in racist costumes for which he has not ever come fully to account, and he drove many women of his own caucus out of the party and out of Parliament altogether with his mistreatment of them. We condemn all of that behavior. We condemn misogyny always and everywhere, and we ask the Prime Minister to finally do the same.
I will always call out unacceptable rhetoric and hateful language wherever I see it. And
you've been pictured in this Buckingham Palace reception with Prime Minister Trudeau and others, apparently having a joke, maybe at Mr Trump's expense. Do you not take President Trump seriously?
No, that's complete nonsense. And I don't know where that's come from.
Canada's Prime Minister caught apparently gossiping about him to Boris Johnson and others.
Prime Minister, what do you think of the opposition leader using the hashtag men going their own way?
Mr. Poilievre deliberately reached out and courted anti-women, far-right extremist groups to advance his political aims. This is absolutely unacceptable, unworthy of any Canadian politician. He needs to take accountability for it and apologize to women.
Point of order, the honourable member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, I am a strong Jewish woman and a member of this House and a descendant of Holocaust survivors, and I have never it's never been singled out, and I have never been made to feel less, except for today when the Prime Minister accused me of standing with swastikas. I think he owes me an apology. I'd like an apology, and I think he owes an apology to all members of this House.
If it were not for global news, we would not have learned that the Conservative leader has been purposefully using his videos to appeal to far-right misogynistic online movements.
That, look, yeah. So I mean, we have basically a liberal heckler who snuck in here today.
I'm a liberal
to.
heckler.
Well,
apparently, I work for Global News. I'm the chief political correspondent for that organization.
Are you going to let me make my mistake?
You may remember me from the guy who actually reported first on the Prime Minister breaking the law.
Yeah. Are you going to let me make my
mistake? We just like to ask a question. Say yes.
I've actually never seen you heckling the Prime Minister.
I've done it before. Ask Minister Baird back in the day.
The Prime Minister. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Appreciate your presence here today. Before I begin, let me just say that. Thank you very much. I'm being heckled here by. Thank you very much for your congratulations. Thank you very much for your questions. I'm going to begin my remarks now.
on Parliament Hill and elsewhere, where people come together angry about a certain thing, wanting something else to change, that don't see the level of hateful rhetoric, of swastikas, of abuse towards their fellow citizens. There is always a right to protest peacefully, that I and others will defend fully as part of this democracy.
I'm not a fan of Trudeau because I don't think he's capable of saying an honest word, and I truly mean that. And I've watched his speeches over and over, watching to see what's going on with him, and all I see is acting.
Protests over the past years that I've seen, that I've been part of, that I've watched from a distance.
The Canadian Prime Minister also loves to wade into the internal affairs of other countries. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. Justin Trudeau tried to lecture India on the farmer protests. He tried to play the spokesperson for the protesters. Did the farmers ask him to do this? No, they did not. Did he help their cause with his statements? No, he did not. Nonetheless, Trudeau has been going on and on about fundamental rights. He says he will always stand up for the right to peaceful protest. Has he upheld this right for his own citizens? Let me show you some images. These are from February this year. Canada witnessed its own share of protests and blockades. Rail crossings were shut, train schedules were disrupted, there was violence in some places. The Indigenous community in Canada was protesting against the gas pipeline project I just told you about. How did Trudeau's administration respond? It made the situation worse. It conducted raids. It carried out a series of arrests in British Columbia. What did Mr. Trudeau have to say about these protests?
Canadians have been patient. Our government has been patient. But it has been 2 weeks, and the barricades need to come down now.
When Canadian citizens protested, Trudeau asked them to respect the rule of law. When Indian farmers protested, Trudeau turned it into an issue of human rights. Aini would have shot itself and died 1,000 deaths.
There's always a right to protest peacefully, that I and others will defend fully as part of this democracy. There is not a right to incite violence, to perform acts of violence, or to spew hatred. Small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing, and to Canadians at home, watching in disgust and disbelief at this behavior, wondering how this could have happened in our nation's capital after everything we've been through together. This is not the story of our pandemic, of our country, of our people. Canada is strong because you, all of you, you are the story of this pandemic, not the convoy.
Enters Ottawa. As thousands of protesters enter Ottawa, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his family were moved from their home to an undisclosed location somewhere in the city on Saturday afternoon due to security concerns. A freedom convoy of some 2,700 truckers entered the Canadian capital of Ottawa Saturday to protest Trudeau's
due to security concerns.
Yeah, security concerns. This is a PM.
Yeah.
So COVID-19 policies. According to The Independent, around 100 big rigs blockaded a main street running past the Canadian Parliament building.
And just in case you still think that he's fighting for the farmers of India, then let me ask you a question. What exactly do these farmers want? They want legal provisions to ensure MSP, minimum support price. What has Canada done vis-a-vis these demands? For years, Canada has challenged this very MSP at the World Trade Organization. As recently as October 2020, Canada slammed the government of India for giving farm subsidies. In other words, Justin Trudeau, who claims to support India's farmers, has challenged the Indian government's farmer-friendly policies at the World Trade Organization. Then what explains his activism over the farmer protest? One word: politics. He tried to use India's farmer protests for his own selfish interests. He's catering to the sentiments of Canada's powerful Sikh community that has become a huge voting bloc. He is pleasing the 18 Sikh MPs in Canada, 4 of whom are part of his cabinet.
Despite India's concerns, Canada has done little to contain Sikh separatists within its society. The entire trip was plagued by another controversy. Jaspal Atwal, a separatist, was extended an invite for Trudeau's reception in Mumbai. Atwal was convicted for the attempted murder of a Punjab minister in 1986. A Canadian judge had once called Atwal a terrorist. The same man was later seen posing with Sophie Trudeau, the wife of the Canadian Prime Minister. It was an embarrassment that could have been easily avoided, but Trudeau's team made it worse by blaming India. During a background briefing to journalists, a source from the Trudeau government suggested rogue elements within India may have engineered the invitation, just to embarrass the Canadian government. Later, a report claimed that it was Trudeau's office that had extended the invite. A few months after the visit, Justin Trudeau tried to poke fun at the widely criticized visit.
We didn't go to India. And I tried, right? I told my team, look, I don't remember the India trip. So I told them I repressed the entire trip, and they said, that's okay. We went ahead and made a slideshow for you. Aren't I lucky? So let's rip off that Band-Aid. Can we roll it, please? Okay.
But no one was laughing in India. India's ties with Canada remain frozen in time. And Trudeau's latest statements on the farmer protests are unlikely to make things better. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
My name is Gurtek Singh. I'm from London, Ontario, and I'm here for my freedom and my rights. I love my freedom and my liberty as much as everybody does. And I hate a government telling me what to do with force. That's all I'm here for. It's about choice, it's not about vaccines. And we are all together, we are all Canadians.
So that's going on. He just tested positive for COVID. Now it's coming into U.S. They froze the GoFundMe account, which raised over $10 million and nearly 140,000 people that donated. And listen, we're kind
Facebook kicked them off yesterday.
Facebook kicked them off in that one group.
137,000 subscribers to that group. They kicked them off. Yeah, you wait till you see your election this year. You're going to see plenty of that, that's for sure.
How bad do you think the consequences are going to be?
The leader of the Socialist Party in Canada, so hypothetically on the side of the working class, the people who are most opposed to the truckers in Canada are the people who vote NDP, the socialists. About 20% of the population stably in Canada. And now and then we have a socialist provincial government. Like I said, there are people on that side of the equation who, for example, were fostered in the labor movement, and they had things to say. The working class needs to have their say. The vast majority of people who vote NDP in Canada are opposed to the truckers. It's like, I thought you guys were on the side of the working class. It's like, what's happened? Well, not them. It's like, hey man, welcome to the working class, those truckers. Well, they're all white supremacists and racists. It's like, really, in Canada, are they now? White supremacists, really? Or Nazis in Canada? There aren't any of them. There was some dimwit was waving a Confederate flag at the rally. And the truckers, he was masked, the truckers stripped him of his mask and chased him away. But all the mainstream press reported Confederate flags at the trucker rally, as if that matters. It's like, it's not like there are a lot of Canadians, by the way, flying the Confederate flag. First of all, that's not our country.
Exactly. Under Mr Trudeau's decree, police had the authority to push back crowds on foot or with horses, use pepper spray, enter trucks and other vehicles by whatever means necessary and make arrests en masse. That's what they did. So it's just worth checking in there. Push back crowds, use pepper spray, enter trucks and other vehicles, make arrests en masse. Hold that image. In December 2020, Mr Trudeau chided India for its police response to farmers' blockades of Delhi. Let me remind you, he said, Canada will always be there to defend the right of peaceful protest. Whether or not there are extremist elements to a protest, or indeed any large group of human beings, you can see why it's favourable to amplify that narrative if you want to oppose and shut down any form of dissent. And that's exactly what's happened here. Now let's get into the more scary aspect of this story. Even though the emergency measures have been revoked because they've done their job, that's like revoking punching you in the face because you're unconscious now. I can revoke punching you in the face. Hello? It's been revoked. But certain financial restrictions are set to remain for a lot longer, and there's an eerie precedent that involves WikiLeaks, Assange and all that stuff that you're going to love hearing about. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has revoked the emergency powers he invoked over just a week ago, saying, "We're ready to confirm that the situation is no longer an emergency." Have you noticed how often we're talking on our videos about the use of language? This is terror now, this is misinformation, this is an emergency. Language is being heavily weaponized by the state.
I will always call out unacceptable rhetoric and hateful language wherever I see it. And you will remember in last election, we saw an awful lot of it. My point was that there are people who are deliberately trying to stir up hate and intolerance and misinformation. And we do need to call out those folks.
Canada's Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, wants to make permanent the invasive financial surveillance system introduced as part of the Emergency Act to crush the civil liberties protest. If your name is Chrystia Freeland, don't make your primary function in life to surveil people's private financial affairs. Freeland had announced the initial powers earlier this week to freeze the bank accounts of those who support the protests. This order covers both personal and corporate accounts. What I find offensive about that is it's happening under the auspices of liberal democracy. Okay, we're just going to be freezing your bank account. We're just going to be asking you never to leave the house again. We're just going to be pepper spraying you in the eyes. How about this? Hey guys, we're thinking it would really help us with these illegal occupations if we had certain measures like to be able to freeze bank accounts. So we're putting it to the vote. Would you like that? Because it's your country, you pay us. Right? They're not doing that, are they? They're just putting those measures in place. That isn't Chrystia Freeland. That's dark crystally tyranny land.
You know?
Excuse me. Excuse me.
You're not getting my vote. This is a free country.
It is
It's a free country, and I'm trying to speak to him, and he won't even acknowledge me.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm sorry for your challenge.
Because I volunteered, but I was in a truck for an hour waiting while you were here with a photo op.
I have
the most insincere thing I've ever seen.
I'm sorry, sir. That's unfriendly and unneighborly today. We're here to help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
You
you,
be
sir.
neighborly.
That's unfriendly and unneighborly today. That's unfriendly and unneighborly today.
If you're not suited for the position, if you're not the man for the position, you can be absolutely 100% sure that the power will corrupt you. How could it not? I mean, at the least, if you don't have the chops for the job, you have to devalue the job to the point where you can feel comfortable inhabiting it. Yes, I think that it's corrupted.
You have what's a creepy dictator for a prime minister, and that's what he is. He is. The way he behaves, the way he behaved during this thing, and just the disingenuous way that he communicated, it freaked me out because I never thought that guy was like that. But just the way he labeled those truckers as racist. For no reason. The people that were protesting against mandates, he decided they were misogynists and racists.
Transphobic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just, but the way he did it was just like, he just cast a pejorative label on them with no evidence, with no provocation. And, you know, before he really leaned into the woke stuff, I just thought he was a kind, sensitive guy.
I think being a feminist is the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do.
You call yourself a feminist, but on your watch, sexual misconduct in Canada's armed forces continues to run rampant. Tell me, why are you allowing these unacceptable conditions to continue?
I think we recognize that there are systems and institutions that need to change across the country, and that's why from the very beginning we stepped up with policies, new policies, stronger policies and processes to support every survivor, everyone who comes forward, because nobody deserves to work in a workplace where they are being discriminated against, where they are being harassed or hassled. We have been unequivocal about that. My leadership has been unequivocal about that. Yes, these problems continue in workplaces across the country, particularly in the military. That's unacceptable, which is why we've taken even stronger measures. It's unsatisfactory to have to say we're relying on process in this. We want to just be able to have easy answers. It is women and girls who are at the heart of the greatest global challenges we have. And if we can get them empowered to shape their communities, to shape their worlds, we're going to be on the right track.
I believe that if there were more women on this platform tonight and in previous years, that we, in fact, would have better laws in our military. We would have childcare at this point. We would have many of the things that we need. I am the only woman, other than Elizabeth May, to be on this platform in the last 18 years. The Liberal Party has never had a woman lead it. I think it's time for the party to examine its priorities.
Ms. Hall, you'll perhaps understand that I won't take lessons on caucus management from you. Perhaps understand that I won't take lessons on caucus management from you. Perhaps understand that I won't take lessons on caucus management from you. From you. From you. From you. Thank you all for being part of such an important global forum. A few weeks ago, I met Amina, a mom who started her own farm and local business in Canada. Amina's proud of what she's accomplished, and rightly so. But from finding good childcare to working in an industry dominated by men, she told me it hasn't been easy. As leaders and governments, that's something we have to listen to.
The farmers in Canada objected. They said, look, we have every economic reason to use as little fertilizer as we can because it's expensive. We have cut our fertilizer use so substantially in the last 40 years, you can't believe it, and we grow way more food. We're already breaking ourselves in half. And if you know farmers, especially the ones who still survive, you think those people don't know what they're doing. It's like, yeah, they're pretty damn sophisticated, man. Like, way more sophisticated than our prime minister. And now you tell them, no, it's a 30% reduction, and we don't care how much food you're growing. So it's not a reduction that's dependent on amount of food produced per unit of fertilizer used, which would be, at least, you could imagine it. So, okay, so you're producing this much food, and you use this much fertilizer, so you're hyper efficient. Maybe we take the 10% of farmers who are the least efficient in that metric, and we say to them, you have to get as efficient as the average farmer.
The Prime Minister is really good at yelling and screaming at women, as the member from Whitby knows.
The Prime Minister is not having a good day. On top of news that the Ethics Committee will now be probing the SNC-Lavalin affair, Trudeau also lost one of his female MPs, Selina Cesar-Chavannes, a woman who once accused Trudeau of yelling at her during a phone conversation.
He asked for strong women, and this is what they look like. Women who won't sacrifice their principles to cover up his corruption scandals. Women who stand up every day and refuse to back down against his abuse of our judiciary, of parliamentary committees, and more importantly, the use of the term feminist. Fake. I'll ask one more time. If this Prime Minister is such a feminist, why is he muzzling the former Attorney General?
The opposition held nothing back, accusing the Prime Minister of being a fake feminist and making the connection to the SNC-Lavalin case.
It seems the only women the Prime Minister is proud of are those who use their reputation to do his dirty work. And that's wrong. That's not a feminist. There's a reason why he used. They experience things differently, both in the Creston groping scandal and in LavScam. It's because he wants women to think and take the message that if they accuse him, a powerful man, of wrongdoing, then it's them to blame. And that's wrong. Why is the Prime Minister only letting his good old boys do all the talking?
I have said before, and I'll say again tonight, that I do not believe that Mr. Trudeau is a real feminist. A feminist doesn't continue to push strong women out of his party when they are just seeking to serve. And I will say their names tonight and thank them. Thank you, Jane Philpott. Thank you, Jody Wilson-Raybould. Thank you, Selena Cesar-Chavez. And I'm here tonight thanks to the work that you have done.
I think being a feminist is the right thing to do, but it's also the smart thing to do.
Like you don't have a voice.
Well, it's not a matter of feeling I didn't have a voice. It actually is the reality of the situation. So I describe in the book, especially as parliamentary secretary to the Prime Minister, our first meeting in which I told him very frankly that I didn't want to be tokenized within the government. I didn't want to fill any gender or racial gaps he may have had within in his administration. And clearly there's evidence that the only events that I really attended, especially on an international level, were related to Black events. Right. And there wasn't that opportunity to have the conversation that was needed around strategy, around business, around how to make the policy better or policies better.
You almost had a screaming match with the Prime Minister at the end. What happened?
Well, I told the Prime Minister that I was not intending to run again, and it was a very cordial call, a courtesy call, to let him know that I was not running again. It happened to be on the same day that Honourable Jody Wilson-Raybould had resigned from cabinet, and that conversation didn't sit well with the Prime Minister. It was met with a lot of animosity towards me leaving at a time when he was perceived to have two powerful women of color leave his administration at the same time, and he wasn't happy with it, and I wasn't happy with the tone that he was using with me either.
Well, the words, I mean, that's been very controversial.
Trudeau did something which I think is really cowardly last week. He actually attacked her, and he portrayed conversations he claims to have had with her while knowing she cannot respond. He has her locked down under solicitor-client privilege. So it's almost, he loves boxing. It's almost like boxing with somebody whose hands you've tied. She can't fight back. If he believes these conversations should be public and that he can talk about them, then he should play fair and let her talk too. Our party put forward a motion that would have brought Jody Wilson-Raybould to testify, and Trudeau sent in his majority and voted that down. So right now it looks like a cover-up to me. It's very serious. Look, this company met with Trudeau's office 14 times to lobby to get off the charges. And then Trudeau and his senior staff talked to Jody Wilson-Raybould about it. Apparently those conversations didn't go well, because a month later, she was fired from the job and then moved to another. And then last week, when Trudeau claimed that she supported everything he did and that she clearly believed that he was ethical, she couldn't stomach that and she decided to resign. So something really ugly happened here behind the scenes. We need an open airing to find out what.
After a star-studded stage in Davos, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau faced a more critical audience today.
The Prime Minister was swanning around Switzerland with actors and billionaires.
Trudeau was criticized for hobnobbing with the rich and famous, and
I'm proud to have women who are strong and outstanding, not just in cabinet, but within our caucus.
To welcome the mother of my oh-so-convenient and effective props, my children.
Alors, merci de m'accueillir.
Sophie, what are you wearing tonight? We all want to know.
Oh my God, thank you so much for asking. So I'm wearing Canadian, all Canadian. So this is Untitled from Quebec, Montreal, the duo of designers. And these earrings are Sappho, originally a Montreal designer who's now living in Toronto. So it's all Canadian. I'm wearing Canadian. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And you look fabulous, baby.
Thank you.
My name is Justin Trudeau. I'm the Prime Minister of Canada. I stand for giving everyone a real and fair chance to succeed.
Well, the way that Trudeau messed up, and I'm not sure he could control himself because it was such a harsh denial, but look at that look on his face. He's clearly shocked, and he's like, oh, you ever seen those NBA players that go for high fives and their teammates so worked up they don't see him? Well, this is especially hard because Jair clearly saw him, knows he got his attention first, and was so quick to turn and diss him. And then the funny thing is, when he turned back around to actually shake his hand, he shakes his hand and then immediately turns right back around. He had no interest in Trudeau.